The Women's Super League is back. The return to action after the winter break gives us an exciting matchup between the Manchester clubs. It's Derby Day at the Etihad and we're analysing how the teams have fared so far this season, how we expect them to line up in this game, and why Man United may just have the tactical edge over their rivals. This is our Manchester Derby preview. Alright, let's get into it then. It's the Manchester Derby this Sunday, Manchester City versus Manchester United. It should be a really exciting game, and Harry, it's going to be a really close one, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, the WSL is back, and what a game to come back to in the Manchester Derby. A huge game because, as you say, I think a lot of people on paper, perhaps if this was towards the start of the season, would have expected a pretty comfortable win for Manchester City. But as you say, coming into the new year, on form, on paper, these two sides look much, much closer. And I think we're in for a really, really good match because, you know, they're two sides where United are playing their best stuff at the moment. City aren't playing brilliantly, but they are still playing pretty well. So it should be a very close encounter.
Yeah, we're going to talk today about how both sides have fared this season. We're going to talk about how both sides look tactically, how they've lined up this campaign, and then ultimately why I think Manchester United may go into this game as favourites, may actually go on to win this game. And let's start by looking at how United then have played this season. On screen now is their formation from that campaign, the 4-2-3-1 that we've seen in every match, I believe. I can't think of one where we haven't seen it. And it's been a fairly reliable system. The shape has stayed the same, while the personnel has changed quite a lot around it.
Yeah, very much so. And I think that has potentially been the confusion for people is that the tactic has never changed. The reason why, you know, we've seen it, such a difference in performances so far is that personnel change. And I think it's interesting. It's not unusual to see a manager stick with the tactic but swap the selection. Overall, let's be honest, it doesn't really work for Man United so far, but they look like they're getting somewhere. Now they're finding a bit more consistency with both the tactic and the personnel.
I disagree. I think it's worked very well. I think they struggle still to break down low blocks, but that's not going to be an issue this weekend, which is the important thing. I think that, so they struggle to break down low blocks. They've not won against the top 5 this season as well. So they are both issues, I think, for Manchester United. I don't think the pivot is that comfortable receiving the ball under pressure. I still think there are some issues when they play out from the back with Janssen and with Miyazawa. I think if you had a more natural defensive midfielder, one who's a bit more comfortable in possession, I think you'd find that works. But I do think actually Miyazawa, because she's a very good dribbler, she can work her way out of trouble quite effectively, which is good. I think Janssen has done very well with the defensive side, but she's a little bit too cumbersome to play that defense. You need to be agile in defensive midfield because you've got to be able to receive the ball under pressure. You've got to be able to dribble out of some tough situations at times, which is why I don't think Janssen's perfect, but she has done right in that role. I'd also say that at times their press hasn't been the most effective. I think that there are teams that have played through them quite effectively. However, a lot of positives for Manchester United this season. So looking at some of their tactical principles and what's gone well for them, I think they're very good at creating opportunities from wide areas. That is what they tend to look to do, is to funnel the ball through the middle or from the fullbacks and then into those wide channels. I think what we've seen really nicely are those wide triangles with Grace Clinton pulling wide. You then have the fullback pushing forward and the winger, and then they can form those triangles. And they're able to quite effectively retain possession and then probe and wait for opportunities to move that ball forward. I think that's been really successful. I think they're quite good at stretching the opposition backline. We've seen that a few times this season where, because they've got those two wingers, and they are very wide United wingers, you've got Galton and you've got Bizet, or you have the overlapping fullback and then the winger tucks inside a little bit more. But what they do very effectively is make that pitch so wide, and it's really difficult for teams to deal with. I mean, I think back to the game against Liverpool, where Leah Galton scored, and well, actually, throughout that game, they really stretched that Liverpool backline, and it created space in those half spaces. It gave them those pockets to work in, and ultimately they utilised those to then go and create opportunities and go and score goals.
I think another game of that was the Tottenham game where they practically scored carbon copy goals, where Bizet managed to get herself some space very, practically on the touchline, and then just whipped the ball in and turned and scored a goal. And I think that's why this season you mentioned out wide there, why Galton coming back in and has played well, why Bizet's had a good season, and also why George and Riviere have been, people have raved about all campaigns, because it's a key area for United, and those players are performing because they're being utilised perfectly.
Well, this thing, I think George is a little bit too defensive, and the problem they had at the start of the season was you had George as the attacking fullback, and you had Ella Toone playing on that left wing. Now, neither of those are naturally good in that wide left space, but what they've been able to do since Galton's come back is use Galton in that role. And then if they are attacking down the left-hand side, George will either offer support or she'll tuck in a little bit narrower, which does still give them an option. Or she can overlap occasionally, but I think she's better playing more defensive roles. Or she sits, they attack down the right-hand side, and you've got Jade Riviere getting forwards, which is a really much more dangerous prospect, I think. So that they've done that very effectively. And I think that full-back rotation has kept their rest defence really solid. Because that's the biggest thing. We've spoken about their in-possession stuff there. But defensively this season, Manchester United have been phenomenal. They've only conceded 3 goals in the league this season. That was 1 to Chelsea, 1 to Arsenal, 1 to Brighton, I believe.
Yeah.
They're the only goals they've conceded this season. And a large part of that is because they are so good without the ball.
Yeah, very much so. I think that is it's very strong. But obviously, when we're talking about the Manchester derby, it does make for interesting reading because yes, they have only conceded 3 goals this season and they've looked really solid defensively. But the 3 goals they've conceded came against the teams in first, third, and fifth. The other 3 teams in the top 5, bar the 2 Manchester clubs. So, yes, Man City will look at that and go, well, we'll fancy ourselves to score them because the other top teams have done it. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy because the fact that, the other way you look at it is that Man United limited Chelsea to only 1 goal. They limited Arsenal, who had a whole host of chances, to only 1 goal based on, due to individual performances in those games from Tyrese Joyce, from Letitia. But overall, really strong defensively. City will fancy themselves to find the back of the net. But if United do what they've done to the other top clubs and shut them out and City only score 1 goal, then there's still a very good chance that United can take something from the game. As we saw against Brighton, as we saw against Arsenal, they kept it down to 1 and they took something from the match.
Yeah, while we're still on Manchester United then, because I do want to get on to Man City and look at where United could exploit some weaknesses. But just looking at Man United, do you think this is the 11 that will start the game? Because there is a conversation now with Ella Toone coming back from injury. Does she come back straight into the starting 11?
I don't think so, to be honest. I think you have to look at the way that United ended 2024. This 11 absolutely thumped Liverpool, and I know Liverpool are struggling, but that was a really convincing performance from United. And I think, as you say, with Toone out on that left-hand side, it hurt United more than it aided them. That being said, I think Toone is still a fantastic player. It's not been her season so far, but she came off the bench against West Brom and got a goal, and that was absolutely huge for her. If she can do the same in this match, and by that I mean if we get to 60, 70 minutes and it's a tight game, bringing on Ella Toone is an absolute weapon to have on the bench. If it's 1-1, if you're level, you bring Toone on for Clinton, or you shift Clinton's elsewhere, or you bring Toone onto the pitch, and she can make a difference. I wouldn't start her. I think this does have to be the 11. Obviously, we've seen some other things experimented this year with Bizet playing that right back role and overlapping with Heisei coming onto the pitch and kicking people and just trying to dribble everywhere. I do think that the 11 that we saw the Liverpool game, the 11 you had there, for me, that's got to be the team that starts.
Yeah, I'll be intrigued. I think it's going to be interesting. Let's look at the Man City team then, because I think it's very important to look at that before analysing how United could potentially beat Manchester City. It's been a 4-3-3 for City this season, very similar to last campaign. They line up with 4 at the back, Hasegawa as the defence midfielder, 2 more attacking or playmakers, I think you can call them, and then you've got the front 3, of course. Now, the makeup of the squad's been a little bit different this season, with Chloe Kelly dropping out of the side, and we don't see any changes happening there, so we expect Fowler will start on the right-hand side, unless, of course, there's no Lauren Hemp and Khadija Shaw. How much of an impact do Hemp and Shaw have?
Absolutely huge. I think that missing them is going to be a huge miss for Man City. I think they're both players that have been sensational this year. Shaw is still the top goal scorer. Hemp's goals and assists have been brilliant. They are 2 players that can change a game, and the fact, I think losing one of them would be a huge miss for City. To lose both of them at the same time it's catastrophic. It's a massive disappointment, and they're going to have to work without them. I'm intrigued to see how it lines up, as you say, because Kelly hasn't played in the first half of the year, did start the game against Ipswich through necessity, really. I'm intrigued to see how it's going to come up, but yeah, definitely two big misses for Hemp and Shaw.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Just looking though at City, what they do very effectively is holding on to possession. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how United line up against that. But I think it does play into United's strengths, the fact that City aren't very transitional. We haven't really seen United get hit in transition, But what we've seen very effectively from United, to be fair, well, the rest of defence is good, so they're not too bad at defending transitionals. But what we've seen very effectively from United is that mid blocking. Is they're able to really effectively transition into a mid block, then into a low block if they need to. And it's really difficult to break that down. And I think, again, City's biggest weakness this season has been breaking down low blocks. They just don't seem to have any ideas until they overcommit forwards, and then they end up with a very weak rest defence, which they don't really have one anyway. Their rest defence structure is really poor. They either have three defenders back and one fullback goes forward, but often both fullbacks will get forward, and they've only got a single pivot. So when you compare that United leave three defenders back and then they have two midfielders, who one of which will sit just in front and one of which will try and get involved with the play, you compare that to Manchester City, who have two centre-backs and Yuri Hasegawa at times. And that is their rest defence. And then you think of games like Everton this season, where they did get opened up on the counter. The most recent WSL fixture was Everton, indeed, where they did get opened up on the counter and they did get opened up in transition. And I think conceding fast breaks, they're so vulnerable to it. And I think United have got to try and exploit that.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it? As you say, you mentioned that Everton game. Everton did superbly in that low block and they sprung forward. And to be honest, a better quality side with better attackers would have probably scored more than two that day. Everton had a hatful of chances. The difference is United will do that. United have those better attackers, and it will be similar. City will have the ball, as you say. United will drop into that low block. And then they will pounce. But the difference is between United and Everton is that when United pounce, they will score because they've got Clinton and they've got Turland and they've got Galton and Bizet. They will for Man City. That's got to be a huge concern, because if it is a similar game, if it's a similar pattern to the Everton one, United will run riot because they will just, time and time again, they will hit City in transition, they'll hit City on the counter, and they'll just throw all these top quality attackers at them, and United will score goals. So it's definitely something that United they'll understand, they'll know that's the way they can beat City. City have got to adjust for it. They cannot afford to have to leave so little players back, because it will cost them dearly. Unless they've magically managed to find a way through this United defence, which I'd be very surprised, because every other team in the league has struggled to do so. So for United, it's really positive reading that if they execute their game plan, there might be nothing City can do to stop it.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think with Hemp and Shaw on the side, you talk about the X factor they bring, the fact that they can create chances out of nothing. As we've seen so many times this season, they have bailed City out that way. But then Chelsea executed the low block to perfection and then sprung on the counter, and they won that game 2-0. I think if United watch that game and take inspiration from that, if they watch the game that Everton played only a few weeks ago, or about a month ago now, I think that is how they should model how they want to play in that game. Because if they play like that, if they play like Chelsea did at Stamford Bridge and they play like Everton did at the end of December, I think we will see them beat Manchester City in this game, because they will be able to counter effectively. My only question mark on United is personnel-wise, because I think if Toon starts, that does weaken them. I have questions over whether Turn is the best fit for this game. I think a fantastic striker, but does Melvin Mallard give you more transitional threat? It's definitely something I think Skinner will be thinking about this week. Ultimately, I would be surprised. I think they will stick with Ellie Turland because she's their recognised number 9. She's played so much of them this season. But I think if you're looking at where they can get those tactical upsides, where they could really hurt Manchester City, I think Melvin Mallard's going to be a real big threat, no matter whether she starts this game or whether she comes off the bench. Either or, she's going to be a huge threat.
And that's the thing, if Man United are sitting there, we talk about as another factor in this game that we saw have a huge impact in the Chelsea-Man City game, is that squad depth. City, with the players they're missing, they look at the bench and there isn't much there. For United, we speak about Mallard coming on, Ella Toon coming on. These are top players that can come on and make a difference and cause issues. And if they're trying to see out a lead, I think you chuck Rachel Williams on there and you just get her up there to win a few headers and to cause some issues. United and Skinner have got it so right so far this season. They have a huge opportunity this weekend to get themselves into third place or joint second with Arsenal, and show that everything they've built up to over the last couple of months, all the work they've put in, all the positive stuff, now is the time to get it right. They're yet to beat a side in the top 5 this season. This is a glorious chance against a depleted Man City. Skinner's got to get it right. And if we know Mark Skinner, there is a slight chance he gets it wrong. But
I think they've done well this season. I think he's got his team selection spot on.
Yeah.
There's only been 2 games this season where they were totally outplayed, and that was Chelsea and Arsenal. And they managed to get a draw in that Arsenal game, and they almost got a draw against Chelsea because they have been so good defensively. So I think that they've done well this season, Manchester United. This would be a huge scalp. I think if they can take the Manchester derby, as you say, it puts them in a really strong position. I think suddenly you've got to look at them as serious Champions League contenders. I mean, they're there anyway.
Yeah.
But if they lose this, then suddenly they're like 6 points off City.
Yeah.
So that is something to bear in mind. But I think they are in a really good spot now. I think they'll be really keen to push on from here. This is a good opportunity to do so, especially considering you've got Arsenal who've got to play Chelsea in the next month. You've got City and Arsenal who've got to play against each other. They're going to be really key games as well for United's season. But a win here, and then if they just keep winning the games they should be winning, they'll find themselves second at the start of February.
Yeah, very much so. Man United have got a huge opportunity here to lay down a marker. You know, they started the 2025 with a lovely win against West Brom. And they'll want to take momentum from that. Beat City here, lay that, land that first blow of 2025. Because as you say, everyone in the top 4 has got to play each other again. All the other teams have still got, have got to go to Brighton. And I know, yes, United have still got to play a few, but the main thing for that is that they host Chelsea now. They host City after this weekend. They host Brighton. So yes, they're going to play difficult positions, but they've got that home advantage. They've done the tricky away trips. Other teams have still got to do the travelling to the big sides, and they're all going to take points off each other. United, get out of the blocks, start fast, get out of the blocks early doors in this second half of the season, and they could put themselves in contention for a really strong end to this year.
Yeah, I think they play Arsenal either, is it last game of the season or penultimate?
It's towards the end,
right at the end of the campaign, so that will be a big game. But yeah, I think United are in a really good spot. On this game, let's get some score predictions going. Of course, we are going to be live for it, so do join us on Sunday for the game. And, our prediction may change between now and then, depending on the availability of Shaw and Hemp. But if it's right now, Harry, what is your score prediction?
I think it will follow a similar pattern in terms of how United have done against the other top 5 sides. In terms of, I think that City will put a bit of pressure on. United will do very well, and I think City will score in this game at some point. But I think the transitional threat and the attacking prowess of that United have shown in the last couple of weeks could be enough here. For me, I think it'll be a slim win, like a 2-1 to Man United. I think City will score, but again, I think if United can do what they did against Arsenal, keep it down to 1, they can get something from the game. I think the difference is that rather than United kept it at 1 and they got a point from Brighton, a point from Arsenal. I think they can keep City down to scoring 1 goal, but then they'll go on and score 2 or 3 more themselves. So I'm going to go for a Manchester United win.
Yeah, I think that's a fair prediction. I personally can't see Man City scoring if Shaw and Hemp aren't fit. I think that their attack has looked really poor without them recently. Against Barcelona, they basically, to be fair, it was a very tough team to try and beat, but they didn't really create anything. Against Everton, they didn't do anything till right at the end where they got a penalty. So, I just don't think they're in the position that they want to be in right now. I think without Shaw and Hemp, though, really, really weak in the attacking third. So, and I think United best defensive team in the league against City without Shaw and Hemp, who have been the major contributors for them this season. I think that's a huge issue. So I will say, tempted to go 3-0, but that feels a little high, so I'll say 2-0 Manchester United. It changes if Shaw and Hemp are fit. Suddenly that game could easily be 2-2, 2-1, something like that. But I think if they're both out injured, I don't see where the goals come from for Man City. I think, yes, Park can contribute, yes, Roord can contribute, but often it's the chances are being created by Shaw being that advanced forward, by creating that space for the midfielders, by Hemp taking a few players on and then being able to cut the ball back. That ain't going to happen if they're not there. Yeah. And so I don't think their prowess is so worrying for United. I think that, yes, the fullbacks are very dangerous crossers, but if there's no Khadija Shaw in the box, United win those headers. So I think this game will be decided based on the fitness of Shaw and Hemp, which isn't ideal, but also on the fact that at the moment I don't think City tactically are that strong, and I think United have looked very good.
Yeah, I think the other thing with I think especially with Jess Park is I think Jess Park has proven herself to be a bit of a big game player. Scored against Arsenal at the Emirates this season, scored against Manchester United in the Manchester Derby last season, but that will only happen for me if she is playing in the middle of the park. Gareth Taylor cannot afford to do what he did against Everton and put her on the right hand side. She's ineffective. It doesn't work. I mean, obviously I think he did that to avoid playing Chloe Kelly. But for me, she's not a bad. I think you have to, if you're going to do that, you have to start Kelly, because Park has to play centrally. You can't force her out onto the right wide position, because she will just not work, and you'll lose a lot of her ability. And she is a game changer in her own right, but I don't think she could do it from the right wing. She has to play centrally, and if that means Chloe Kelly starts, that means Chloe Kelly starts. And what an opportunity that would be for Kelly. If she gets the nod somehow, be a miracle, but if she does get the nod, then I think it's a huge game for her to kind of go and score a goal and then stick her middle finger up at Gareth Taylor.
Wouldn't be surprised though if they end up going for Gino Pritchard and Fowler somehow.
That would, for me, that's better than what they did against Everton. So that it would be okay. And again, a huge opportunity for Pritchard, because if she comes in and scores a goal, then suddenly Khadija Shaw's got to watch her space.
And Crystal Palace will be fuming, because where was that for the first 6 months of the campaign? But yeah, I think that nicely rounds up what we want to talk about today. As I say, we're back with the live streams this weekend. The WSL returns from winter break. We'll be live Sunday morning for Tottenham versus Leicester. So if you just can't wait to the Manchester derby for that WSL fix, then you're welcome to join us in the morning. And then we'll be back in the evening for that aforementioned Manchester derby. Going to be a very, very good game at the Etihad. We're excited for it. Join us here from 6:30, I believe.
Oh, was it? Yeah, it's a late one.
It is the late one, so join us for that one. But thank you guys very, very much for watching. That is everything from us today. There'll be another video on screen now that you can go and check out. That is everything for us today. Thank you guys very, very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.